Tonight on KQED Newsroom, in a fierce fight for a Northern California congressional seat, a Democrat is making inroads on Republican turf. We speak with Democratic challenger Kermit Jones. And it's being described as a virtual universe for work, play, and more. But what exactly is the Metaverse, and how will it shape our lives in the years to come? Our panel of experts offer their predictions. And we venture into San Francisco's past in tonight's edition of Something Beautiful. Coming to you from KQED headquarters in San Francisco, this Friday, October 21st, 2022. Hello and welcome to the show. This is KQED Newsroom, and I'm Priya David Clemens. We begin tonight with a race in California's 3rd Congressional District, a mostly rural district that leans right. Dr. Kermit Jones, a Democrat, is running against Republican Kevin Kiley, who's currently a state assembly member. They're vying for a seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. The district stretches from Plumas County through Sacramento suburbs into parts of Dorado County and down to Inyo County. I should mention that we invited both candidates to join us tonight, but Mr. Kiley declined. Kermit Jones joins me now. Dr. Jones, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Priya. I appreciate the opportunity.
So you were a medical doctor, and somehow you decided you're going to leave that behind and run for political office. Why?
Well, I think the biggest thing that I think about in terms of my decision to actually run was, in addition to being a medical doctor, I also served in the military. And that opportunity and privilege I had to protect our values and Constitution overseas and also represent us overseas is one of the reasons I decided to try to do that type of representation again in this position. I think there are a lot of people in our district that aren't getting a fair shot, and we have a lot of things that are really important on the ballot right now. We have our democracy on the ballot. You know, we have women's access to reproductive health on the ballot. We have health care on the ballot. And so when I think about all the people that I was proud to serve and protect as a member of the armed services with my 2 deployments to Iraq, I look at this as another opportunity to do that if they give me that opportunity.
And why do you think your district needs you?
Yeah, I have the experience in leadership that a lot of people that are politicians don't have. I think right now people are ready to get beyond partisanship. They're tired of the games. They're tired of looking at a party as one person. And they're tired of people saying that they're going to do something and then do something else. My record as a physician, as you mentioned in the beginning, I've treated over 20,000 patients, wanted to be a doctor since I was 8, and then also have that record of leadership. You know, I'll tell you, to be honest, you know, we didn't always agree when I was in the military, but we got the job done. You know, we came together as Democrats, Republicans, and independents, and that's what we did. And I think people are looking for that type of commitment in this position as well. You know, I tell people in the district, if they give me the honor of serving again, I will represent them regardless of what they call themselves. And then also, whether they voted for me or not, I'll make sure that they get everything that they need from the federal government in our district.
So the district that you're talking about here, it does lean conservative, and if you're talking about not being party to or beholden to any particular party, tell me about some of the ways in which you feel your policies reach across the aisle.
Yeah, I focus on those things that actually affect people's lives. You know, I tell people, and just to give you an example, when was the last time you ever heard your physician ask your political affiliation when you came to see him or her?
Never.
Exactly. I mean, that's not what the Hippocratic Oath is all about. So I focus on those things like a federal fire insurance plan. You know, we have people in our district that have retired into our district. We're paying $1,000 a year in the beginning for federal fire insurance, or rather for state-based fire insurance, and now they're paying over $10,000. You know, we have programs at the state level that are going to make it so that people can pay less, but we need to do it so that we have tax rebates so people can actually harden their homes. I care about issues like crime in our district as well. I've been endorsed by the largest police officers union in the country, PORAC. I just secured the endorsement of the head law enforcement officer in our state, the Attorney General. So these are things in which I think people trust veterans that know the importance of service to do this. And that's why I'm going to focus on those issues that affect everyone, regardless of your political affiliation.
So some of the ads that have run against you have said you would defund the police. From what you're saying right now, does that accord with your views? Do you think police should have less funding?
Here's my personal opinion on it, is people should run ads and they should do messaging in which it actually gives people the truth to vote on. My opponent's not doing that. You know, he had an opportunity to come here today and straighten the record, and he decided not to. I think we actually should improve the ability for people to go to police academies. We can get good people in the law enforcement. That's what I've heard from some of the sheriffs. And again, you know, I think people are looking for candidates that actually do what they say. They don't do one thing and then, or say one thing and then do something completely different,
well,
like my opponent.
Let's go back to what you're saying about police funding, right? There is a real concern right now for voters across the state in terms of crime and crime rates here in San Francisco and what's happening here with open air drug dealing, for example. Yeah. So what is your stance on how legislators should support police officers, police presence, versus changing the way policing has happened over many years? What actions would you take?
Yeah, I mean, some of the things I think we need to focus on is making sure that the law enforcement has the tools that it needs to actually get the job done. I mean, there was I think, election in San Francisco recently when people were not happy with the district attorney here and the way things were being done. What those tools mean is making it so that they can communicate with the communities that they police. You know, that we make sure if they have body cameras that we give them federal funding for that. And again, that we actually respect them for the job that they're doing. You know, I was, you know, talking to you prior to, you know, the camera turning on, and I say when I looked at the camera during, or the TV during 9/11, I saw a lot of first responders, law enforcement, police officers, firemen, firewomen, go into the Twin Towers and never come back out. And so I think that was a period in which we were more together as a country. We focus on the things that matter. And if we get back to that point in which we realize that law enforcement is here to help us, we work together to actually keep ourselves safe, then I think we'll be in a better place. And those are the types of policies that someone could expect if I'm elected to Congress.
Another concern, you've mentioned it briefly, is fire prevention, fire insurance for your region. Tell us about the state of fire preparedness.
Yeah, it's not as good as it could be. I mean, we have a lot of fire safe councils and communities in our district that are doing everything that they can. You know, I've written some op-eds about this. I had a teletown hall last week that had about 6,000 attendees there. And we talk about the fact that you have people who, look, we know what the right thing is. That's why we've been endorsed by the California Professional Firefighters. If people can create the defensible space, if the federal government will actually do its job in terms of fuel reduction, then it lowers the risk sometimes up to 40%. And that's why I tell people I'm not beholden to any party. You know, I'm not a politician. So I'm just as comfortable pushing back or holding the Biden administration accountable as I would any other Republican, you know, that's running for office or is in office.
And I believe I heard you say that you do not actually think that President Biden's decision to forgive school loans was one that you would have been on board with.
I wouldn't have. And it's not because I don't, I'd say, sympathize with people that are struggling with student loans. I went into the military after 9/11, which did pay for half of my med school, and I understood that, you know, I owed them 5 years of active duty, which I was proud to serve. We have a lot of other people that are struggling to find jobs or working in jobs in which they couldn't go to college. So I think it's more of an equity issue. You know, we have on our website a plan called the Citizen Scholars Program, in which I think people can trade community service to pay for school or to pay for other types of things, because we need that. You know, the military isn't for everyone, but I just want us to be together as a community and people to feel as if we're being fair when we're doing things like loan forgiveness.
You had a pretty comfortable life working as a doctor. You like to hike. You have an 8-year-old child. There are plenty of other things you could be doing with your time. Why choose to step into this fray, which is fractured, hard, you know, slings and arrows everywhere? Why do this?
Look, going to Iraq was hard. Being in service was hard, but I was proud to do that, and I'd be proud to do this. I've been a doctor for about 18 years, seen over 20,000 patients. I talk about the story of how one of those patients I fought for was my mom. She was diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer even though she never smoked. And I felt that, you're right, I could be a doctor for the next 20 years of my career, but I would not be doing for my patients what I feel I could do at the federal level. I think we need practitioners in Congress. When I look at some of the bills that come out of Congress with respect to healthcare or the Assembly, I'm heartbroken. You know, I mean, like I said, my opponent was on the record voting for things that could lower the cost of pharmaceuticals in our district. You know, was on the record of saying that he would have voted against, you know, capping the cost of Medicare medicines. And I was just going to say, and capping the cost of cancer medicines, which is very personal to me.
Dr. Kermit Jones, thank you for your time here today.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
We turn now to the Metaverse. You've likely heard the term, which refers to a collection of 3D digital worlds and augmented reality in which we can connect with others to shop, work, create, and play games.
Nowhere except the oasis.
If you've seen the sci-fi movie Ready Player One, you can imagine a bit of what the metaverse might be like, but it's still forming. So does anyone really know? Tech giants are betting big that it will change our lives forever. Just look at Facebook, changing its name to Meta. And analysts say the metaverse industry is expected to boom by hundreds of billions of dollars over the next decade. But building out a digital universe is far from certain. There are major obstacles to overcome, from creation to adoption. Tonight, we're talking with several people engaged with this emerging technology. Sami is the CEO and co-founder of a virtual real estate platform called Atlas Earth. Tepmongkol-Wheaton is a digital fashion technologist. And Rachel Metz is a senior writer for CNN Business, covering artificial intelligence and virtual and augmented reality. Thank you all for joining us. I appreciate it.
It's an honor to be here.
Well, thank you for having us.
So I feel like the more I learn about the metaverse, frankly, the more confused I am about it. I used to think it was putting on goggles like this, and then you would go into sort of a virtual digital stimulation and you would interact with others there. But, you know, Rachel, tell me, it sounds like it's broader than that.
Yeah, and I think it kind of depends on like what definition people want, right? There's this sci-fi concept of a metaverse. And in my mind, that's much more akin to virtual reality and going to different places with a headset on your head, but also being able to physically be moving around at the same time and going from one place to another in VR. But I think what we're seeing now is a lot of companies working on expanding that concept to include augmented reality, which could be through glasses, it could be through your phone, and also other types of screens as well, screens that we have today, like a laptop screen, for instance, to sort of expand the way that we use computers and technology to all sorts of places in our lives.
So are we like merging with technology here? Or are we all like connecting and becoming the Borg? I mean, what is this that's happening?
You know, I think that there's a lot happening, and it really comes down to what the end customer wants, right? So everybody has kind of a different taste and a different benefit that they get. At Atlas Earth, we believe in enhancing people's real world experience. And so, you know, for us, it's building a digital layer on top of the real world. We're not the only ones doing that. NVIDIA is doing it to teach self-driving cars how to drive better, right? So when we look at Zuckerberg and Meta, they're doing it in what I would say is more akin to the Ready Player One sensory deprivation tank with your glasses on type of experience. But I think everybody is a little bit different.
Yeah, I agree in a sense where it is kind of like there would be no one solution that fits all. Mm-hmm. So different application would have a different, you know, portion of what, you know, virtual reality or augmented reality. So I think it depends on what application.
And we are in these very, very early proto days of whatever the metaverse ends up becoming. But it seems like we're at a path where we're starting to see more adoption. People are creating content for these virtual worlds in a way that we haven't seen before. So let's get into a little bit of what y'all are doing, because I find it fascinating. Sami, you seem to be managing to convince people to buy fake land in fake worlds. Why do they do that? Why are people buying virtual land?
Yeah, I think at the surface it sounds far-fetched, right? But what we've really done is we're giving people an entry point that is accessible both in the literal and figurative terms, right? So literally, everybody has a phone in their pocket. 600 million people have downloaded games like Pokemon Go that were basically a game built on top of the real world. So when we introduced Atlas Earth and we said, hey, you could buy the virtual real world representation of your house or where you work or where you play. These are places where people have emotional attachments, and they're so easy to do when the phone is in your pocket. So with Atlas Earth, we're validating people's locations based on your phone's location. And it's up to the end customer if, hey, I want to own this parcel of land. So the second thing we've done is we've gamified it, right? And I think the caution that I have is people are using this term, the metaverse and everything. We don't actually lead with the term metaverse, right? We're just letting people buy virtual land and, you know, climb leaderboards. So owning the most land in Austin, Texas, where it's my current place of residence, if you own the most land there, you can become mayor of Austin. So anyone who opens the game in Austin gets bragging rights because they get to show off that they're the mayor of Austin. And so it's this type of gamification that I think is leading people's psychology on why they want to adopt within our platform is there's more than just, hey, I'm here to buy land because land is what's valuable. We're moving this more into a gamified process where people are enhancing their experience by doing all these other things on top of the land.
Well, and then when they're moving into these virtual worlds, they're buying fashion. They're buying virtual skins so they can look different. And oh, this is your world in which you are selling fashion online. You've worked for some big brands, Dior, Chanel. I remember hearing that there was a Gucci handbag that sold for more, for $4,000 in the virtual world than its physical counterpart.
Right. Well, you know, fashion in the metaverse is actually not that much different from fashion in real life, right? It's about, you know, having an image of self and having a, you know, a kind of a dream or aspiration, right? So in the metaverse, it's the same thing. Now you're dressing up instead of yourself, but now you're dressing up your extension of yourself. So we're still, you know, doing the same thing of, you know, aspiration and image and self-expression.
Okay, so we're talking a little bit about the games, the fashion. Rachel, help us broaden this out to the other applications that you're seeing out there for these emerging technologies.
I mean, there's a lot of really interesting uses out there for, if we stick with a lot of the VR side of things, the more like immersive screen and wearing a headset. I think medical applications is one that people have been researching for a really long time. There's some interesting research into how it can really capture your attention well during procedures that could be necessary but painful, like wound care kind of stuff, both with adults and with children. That's one that I've talked to people about.
So you're talking about that for the patients. I always thought that it was being used in medical settings for doctors to learn how to do procedures.
Yeah, I mean, that's an additional way that it can be used, and that would be maybe more of a augmented reality kind of headset. I mean, you could do certain kinds of simulations in VR. I could see how that could be useful to people. And I think some people are working on that. But yeah, you could use like a HoloLens type headset, for example, or one of Magic Leap's headsets to augment what you're seeing in front of you. That's certainly an idea that's been floated. I don't know how well it translates into like an operating room. But again, I mean, that's just one of a lot of obstacles.
And there have been for many years now military applications where there's been training for that. The U.S. Space Force apparently is also using this technology now. And education has been another area that we've talked a lot about. You know, you actually
went to TechCrunch, which is happening just, I think, this week here. And there is a couple of startups that actually doing ADD for children. That, you know, going to the metaverse to train them, they put the headset on for a few minutes a day, and then they get neurons, you know, feedback to help children with ADD, alternative to drugs.
Interesting. And you're using it as well, for activism.
Yes, yes. We wanted to, you know, open up the Web3 and activism, kind of explore that portion, and fashion. You know, like I mentioned earlier, self-expression. Right? Can we, you know, use metaverse fashion to express our, you know, our social views, what we stand for?
So tell us specifically about this Women's March that you have coming up.
We're organizing the first ever Women's Rights March in the metaverse in Decentraland for the November 1st. This is to drive awareness and to, you know, engage younger people and traditional underrepresented people that can't access to, you know, to the actual march, to the activism.
So tell us, and it sounds like it's not just the work that you're doing in terms of activism. We're also seeing out of Ukraine that people are protesting through these sort of virtual worlds and ways to start to come together. Rachel, Sami, talk to us about who the people are who are coming into this new world. Are these all very far bleeding edge sort of adopters? Are those of us who are a little slower on the tech front going to take a while to come?
It's a range. I mean, over the years, as headsets have gotten better and less expensive and easier to buy, you get more and more people buying them thinking, oh, this might be cool, it might be fun, maybe I can use it with my kids, or maybe I'll use it myself. It's become less of a risk to buy these headsets, as especially as Meta has driven the prices down. Like with the Quest 2, which you have right in front of you there. That's a pretty affordable headset at this point.
So this is about a $400, $500 headset, and Meta has just come out with a new one, right? They launched or announced it last week, which was $1,500.
Yeah. That's not for the average user, and that one's aimed more. It's more clearly aimed at business users, which is going to be like a whole other thing that they're hoping to get people interested in. And well, I guess we'll have to see how that goes.
I think it's interesting with the release of these kind of hardwares. One of my favorite presentations of new hardwares was the iPhone presentation by Steve Jobs in 2007, where he said, I'm bringing you 3 new products. A product that can help you listen to a lot of music, a product that can help you make phone calls, and an internet surfing product, right? And then he kept saying that, and then he was like, do you get it? It's actually one product. It's called the iPhone. And I think what Apple and Steve Jobs did really well at that time was steering people towards the direction of usage. My fear and concern with the $1,500 headset is right now it feels very much like I've built the world's most expensive speedboat and I've put you, Priya, in the middle of the largest ocean. And basically there's no land in sight in any direction. And so you're kind of like, here's this thing to use. And everywhere I look, people are saying, to what end? What do I do with it? What's the point? I saw one use case that was Microsoft Teams, but are we really going to spend $1,600 to be in a virtual Teams meeting versus a flat screen video call Teams meeting? And I think ultimately these are the questions experts in this space need to ask, which is what is the average American or the average person actually going to do? Because look, I have to see $1,600 worth of value or more than that, right? My dad's an economist, so what they'll say is, if the value doesn't exceed the cost, I'm not going to do it, right? And so for me, that's really the question mark. And that's why Atlas Earth, we built it on mobile. We built it, where each parcel of land is, 900 square feet mirrored on top of the real world, because you have a, psychological relationship with it. You can play games to earn free land as you play the games. Right,
so and it's accessibility for people.
The barrier to entry is so low. My concern, and I hope that Meta and these other companies highly consider, Apple was building an ecosystem where it's like, look at this new UI. It's not with hard keyboards, so developers can build a keyboard specific to their product, and they can use a camera, they can use the internet connectivity, and it really steered the ecosystem to say, okay, I see all the things you've innovated on, now let me build on top of it, versus, hey, I can detect your facial features, but we're all kind of grasping going, what do we do with this?
Well, and there's a question that you really have, I know, Rachel, about privacy when it comes to these devices as well.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely something that people are concerned about when you're using these devices. What data about me is being gathered? How is it being used? What kinds of controls do I have over it? With the new headset, the Quest Pro, they are doing they can do eye tracking and also some facial feature tracking. And Meta has tried to get out ahead of concerns by being really clear about how they're collecting data on the device, how you can turn it on and off pretty easily, and it's an opt-in process.
I can see that that Meta is driving toward fashion as one of the first use case for maybe high-end luxury fashion like Gucci, Balenciaga are jumping on board, and they are building a high-end like you said, Gucci bags and expensive luxury feel, and this could be one of the use case. And at the Ohzone, what we do is we empower everyday brand to go and scale into the metaverse by transforming the physical to virtual fashion.
So all these technologies, right, they can and are being used for good and for evil. Rachel, you've been a Silicon Valley reporter, tech reporter for 20 years. Give us some perspective on these emerging technologies and the excitement that's around them.
I mean, VR and AR and these associated technologies, they've been in development for a long time, but they're still pretty nascent. And I think that companies need to keep in mind that they still have to help consumers understand why they want to use them in the first place. Why should I want to put something on my face, for instance? My glasses, it's obvious why I would want to use them. They help me see, they help me drive. But a headset, that's a little harder. Also, there can be lots of issues with using these technologies. Sometimes people are harassing other people via avatars, things like that can be a big problem. So I think there's a lot for companies to consider when they're trying to get consumers to use these, and a lot for consumers to consider when they're thinking about what to do.
Rachel, Sami, thank you for being here.
Thank you
so much.
Thank you for having us.
And now let's take a journey in time in the other direction into a San Francisco from the past. Tonight, Something Beautiful features footage from some of the city's famed spots from the 1950s. Those images look like a film set. I mean, I kind of expected Marilyn Monroe or Gene Kelly to start walking down the street. Can you believe that was 70 years ago? Whew, talk about time flying. That is the end of our show for tonight. You can find KQED Newsroom online or on Twitter, or email us at knr@kqed.org. And you can reach me on social media at Priya D. Clemens. Thank you for joining us. We will see you right back here next Friday night. Have a great weekend.